Well, I could probably read the top on the tag on which one over there, but I can't read anything here.
We're ready?
No, yeah, you got 2 more minutes. Oh, this is 7, that doesn't, let's go with this.
Okay.
It was awesome. Either medieval times or ancient Rome.
No,
I went to this one
Where's the
gravestone,
agenda?
and then there's some more. Yes. Sometimes they think they make it. Depending on whether they were felt.
Good evening and welcome to the Governing Board for the Deer Valley Unified School District on June 13, 2023. I call the order to meet at 7:01. Let the record reflect that all board members are present. If you are able to stand, please do so and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance and moment of silence.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
I move that we adopt the agenda as presented with one change, making action item 2C, moving it to a future meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Tabling to future meeting, yes.
Aye.
I think we want to wait till she types it up.
Yeah, she's got to type it up.
Okay.
Who seconded? Ann.
Yes,
Ann.
ma'am.
Good.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye. Ooh, that was loud.
We're moving on to action item number 2.
Okay.
Approve the recommendation for principal of Sierra Verde School. Mrs. Muffin, would you like to present?
Do the motion.
Oh.
Gotta do the motion.
Okay, I would like to make a motion.
Okay, hold on a second. I move that we accept administration's recommendation for Brittany Hughes as the principal for Sierra Verde.
Second.
Thank you, Governing Board, President Paperman, members of the board, Dr. Finch. I am very pleased to be here this evening with two wonderful candidates that we are here to recommend for you for principals at our schools. First, we're starting with Brittany Hughes. Brittany has been an all-star at multiple schools within our system. She most recently has spent this past year at Sierra and has helped this school do amazing things, and we are confident she will continue the great work that Sierra Verde has done for many years into the future.
Any questions, board members? Okay, do I have a motion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Are we going to get the 10-minute speech?
Motion passes 5-0. We want to welcome Brittany to our meeting. If you want to say something, our new principal for Sierra Verde.
Thank you, Governing Board, for the opportunity. I am so excited to continue this journey at Sierra Verde. We're going to grow a lot this year, and it's going to be awesome. I'm excited for a good year.
Congratulations. We're going to move on to item B.
I move that the governing board accept administration's recommendation for the principal of Union Park as Lauren Ganuni.
Oh, did you do that?
I did. I said
Second.
it right even.
President Paperman, members of the board, Dr. Finch, Lauren is here to my right, and she is our recommendation for Union Park School. Lauren has been in multiple schools as well in our system. She's been at title schools, she's been at non-title schools, and Lauren has a true passion for language learning, and we know that she will continue the great work of Principal Graham and the staff that they've done in the past, and she will continue this into the future.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations. Welcome to as our new principal for Union Hills. Would you like to say something to your staff?
Thank you. I just want to say thank you to all members of the board for this opportunity to continue to lead greatness at Union Park.
We'll give you a couple minutes to clear the room.
Hopefully I can get this up so I can actually see what I'm doing and not wing it. The little guy. Okay, now maybe he can get to board docs. Hopefully.
We're going to move to item 3, district report. A, finance report, Mr. Miglorino.
President Paperman, members of the board, Dr. Finch, we have 2 reports to share with you this evening. Will be the final reports that we share for the fiscal year 23. Starting with the student enrollment report through May 17th, which wasn't quite the last day of school, but did show about 271 more students than we had just a year ago at the same point in time. So we were able to finish the year with just under 1% growth, and that was fairly sustained through the second semester of the school year. I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding the student enrollment, and we have the finance report to share this as well.
Any questions?
So hearing no questions about the student enrollment report, we'll share briefly on the M&O report, which will be through the end of May of 2023. So it does not quite close out the year for us. It's 1 month short of that. Also does not have some of the balance of contract payments that were in the first week of June, as well as some of the performance pay. But notably for this month, the projected carry forward did decrease from just over $16 million to just under $14 million. Now that we have a little bit more information and we're getting closer to the end of the fiscal year, that number will be represented in what we share with the board regarding the preview of the proposed budget later in this board meeting. But the most significant change in that decrease happens to be due to the salary expenses that we had, as well as the contracted services that we've had to hire in lieu of filling some of those vacancies. And I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding the May report.
Any questions? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Miglerino. We're going to move on to item 4, call to the public. Mrs. Fisher, can you read the admonishment?
We have 3 speakers, so you'll have 3 minutes. So if you want to come up to the microphone, Aaron Cole is first, followed by Tiffany Benson and Ron Janasek. Close. Okay. The board invites public comment on the district's business in general and on any agenda item specific. All speakers must observe the rules of decorum. Speakers must fill out a card listing name, address, and topic and hand it to the board secretary prior to the president calling the meeting to order. Speakers must make their comments in no more than 3 minutes. If necessary to accommodate all speakers within the 30-minute overall limit, the board president may shorten the speaker's time. Constructive criticism is in order. Rudeness, vulgarity, disruptive conduct, or remarks disrespecting personal dignity are not in order and will not be allowed. Under the Arizona Open Meeting Law, the governing board cannot discuss or act on any items not listed on the agenda. Board members may respond to criticism made by a speaker, ask staff to review a matter, or ask that a matter be put to a future agenda. When you're going to speak, if you could speak up, walk up to the microphone, state your name for the record, and then you have 3 minutes.
Okay. Hi. My name's Erin. I live over in the secluded acres in the States, which is about just south of Union Hills, north of Bell, west of 67th, but east of 75th, if that makes sense. Okay. I'm married. I'm a mother of 2 students that go to Deer Valley High School. I'm a nurse, and I'm here to speak about an extended stay called Stay APT that I think I emailed all of you. I got your email addresses off the internet, and the dangers that it'll bring. So as per any online police department website nationwide, extended stays are hotbeds for criminal activity, including but not limited to drugs, prostitution, sex crimes, child trafficking. Most police agencies nowadays have online searching capabilities, and I invite you all to search for PD calls for service and the dispositions thereof. It is all public record. There is no way, so I'm just going to go over some issues. Sorry, I'm ill prepared. There's no way to vet these tenants or residents. These places are marketed to transients seeking temporary housing. And while this particular business states it markets to business professionals, its price point is identical to the extended stay just south of Bell in the same area. We have interviewed staff at that facility, and we were told that it is incredibly dangerous there, with the exception of the spring training season. Further, there are transients there that are cohabitating in single rooms and are now subject to squatters' rights due to Arizona law. They cannot remove them from the property at this time. Some of the people think that the issues that I speak of are hearsay, and I assure you they are not. I come from a family of law enforcement. I'm well aware of the stigmas surrounding extended stays. And again, I remind you, all calls for service with the police department are public record. It's not hearsay. I'm an ER nurse. I'm well aware of the clientele at the budget suites just around the corner. Again, the clientele that frequents there and that comes to my ER, it's not hearsay. They're not upstanding citizens. I was formerly employed by the Maricopa County Medical Examiner's Office. I've worked cases of overdoses, homicides, suicides, at extended stays throughout Maricopa County. Again, this is all public record. It is not hearsay. The safety data and metrics do not lie. So my purpose for coming here tonight, and pardon the questions, I wasn't sure of the formatting of the back and forth, other than my emails, was Deer Valley Unified School District even officially notified of this proposed build. I'll also note that it's not zoned for residential or hotel. It's going to be a conditional use permit. Secondly, has Deer Valley notified the families of Arrowhead Elementary? Pardon the question. But anyway, many children walk and bike to school there. As a parent, I feel it's imperative this is communicated to the parents and guardians of Arrowhead Elementary. Is Deer Valley Deer Valley School District
Here, ma'am, your time is up. So if you want to, I mean, if you can email what's left, but your time is up, it's expired. So I mean, you can email the remainder, but I would, as a board member, like to request that administration look into if we even have an option or sending a letter or say anything like that. I do know that the city is also utilizing other hotels um, to put transient populations in. Um, as their method of dealing with homelessness. And some of those are also near schools. So I would like administration just to at least look and see if we have any options or any path for expressing concern and what our responsibilities are as far as notifications so that we're um, doing what we need to. Go ahead, speak up, say your name for the record.
Tiffany Benson, so DVUSD Governing Board. I spoke a few weeks ago, and I'm back regarding a former DVUSD employee named Raymond Gulbranson, who was arrested in February for attempting to have sex with a 16-year-old male. Although his crime didn't happen on a DVUSD campus, I think it's morally and ethically right to tell parents their child was exposed to a pedophile, giving them the chance to react and to have their kids interviewed or examined. But it didn't happen this way. Instead, there appears to have been some sort of cover up by the district. On February 23rd, a school safety director sent out an email stating Gulbranson was a quote unquote bus technician on bus route 131. But there's no such position on the district job page. But there is a job description for a school bus assistant, which includes helping students load and unload the bus, buckling seatbelts, and applying necessary restraints for handicapped students. So Gulbranson was not a mechanic, as the email implied, rather he had physical contact with students. It's my belief that the clerical error in the email met the approval of the superintendent and the deputy HR director, who determined that the district would not notify parents or correct public perceptions. Lastly, Gulbranson was a classified employee. He had no contract and no right to benefits. The district could have fired him at any time, yet he was allowed to resign. This, to me, was an obvious abuse of due process. Gulbranson is another so-called first-time offender who, had he not been arrested, could have gone to work in another district. As it stands, he held several jobs in DVUSD. There's a pattern of student endangerment that I think is unacceptable, and I just want the administration here and the board to work together to revamp the processes for hiring and do better. That would be my call to action. It seems there's too few people in power who are willing to do what's right. And I've been in a lot of school districts and a lot of board meetings, and so I kind of know what I'm talking about. But my call to action to the DVUSD community is that you would continue to reach out at schoolboardwatchlist.org and submit an investigation request.
Thank you. Again, my request to the board president and administration. We had addressed changes within our processes 2 years ago. I would ask that we have a meeting, I guess an executive session, I think it has to be, to discuss that with the 2 new board members and then review if that direction is being followed. And if it is not, and we need to change anything, then make that change. I'm going to speak, step up to the microphone and state your name for the record. Yes.
On this topic that was just brought up, Ms. Moffett,
Yeah, we can't discuss it. I was just gonna,
follow up on a request that had been made previous, but I'll
Yeah.
do my board report, that's fine. Thank you.
that'd be fine. Yep, because a lot of that information is incorrect. And so, as you know, we go with our attorney, so we will give you the process again in a Friday update.
Okay.
Go ahead and state your name for the record.
Okay. Thank you for this opportunity to be able to speak tonight. my topic tonight is Arizona School Boards Association. Um, Up until a couple of weeks ago, I'd never even heard of this organization. So I began to do some research. I looked at their website, basically, is what I did. Um, I encourage everybody in here to look at their website. Okay, look, spend some time with their website. You'll get an eyeful. Um, I went to the advocacy section, and down from there, I went to the legislative section, then to the legislative positions. And there you could look up bills, and they rate all of these bills, Senate bills and House bills. And I chose 10 bills that they were opposed to because they showed that they were either supported the bill or they opposed the bill. I chose 10 bills that they were opposed to, and I looked at them. And out of those 10 bills that they opposed, I would have supported those bills. I'll give you an example. House Bill 2332, firearms safety. It's a bill that would have the schools teach firearms safety to our children. That makes a lot of sense to me. That's a common sense bill. They were opposed to it. House Bill 2523, the Pledge of Allegiance, flags in classrooms, and Constitution and Bill of Rights displayed. This bill would have students recite the Pledge of Allegiance like we did tonight. It would require them to display a flag in every room and the Bill of Rights and the U.S. Constitution. They are opposed to that bill. Why would that be? And the last item that I want to mention is the Empowerment Scholarship Account. This is a wonderful program. It empowers parents to be able to have more say in their child's education. They are not only opposed to this, now I know this has already been signed into law, but they would like to repeal this. And not only would they like to repeal it, they would like to prevent any future expansion of it. Now, what kind of organization is against empowering parents? I want everybody to think about that. This is not an American freedom loving organization. And I think we should not be involved with them whatsoever. Thank you.
We're going to move on to item 5, consent agenda. Mrs. Fisher, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move that the governing board accept administration's recommendation for the consent agenda items 5A through 5L.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 We're moving on to 6, action. Approve district superintendent performance pay. Mrs. Fisher, can I get a motion?
I move that the board accept, I just had to get it. The governing board approve performance pay for the Deer Valley Unified School District Superintendent Curtis Finch at 25% of the 10% contract allowable.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Did it go?
5-0, okay. Moving on to item B, approve addenda pre-approval. Mrs. Fisher, can I get a motion?
I move that the governing board accept administration's recommendation to pre-approve the addenda as presented.
Any,
Second.
any presentation for this, Mr. Miglorino? No. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Did it go through?
5-0. Moving to item C, authorization to enter into cooperative contract purchase for fiscal year 2023-24. Mrs. Fisher, can I get a motion?
I move that the governing board accept administration's recommendation to enter into cooperative purchasing contracts for the 2023-2024 year as presented.
Second.
Any presentation for this, Ms.?
President Paperman, members of the board, Dr. Finch, no presentation for the next three items, only that we were asked to have these as action items. In previous years, they would have been on the consent agenda. These are normal course of actions, giving the authorization to do continuing business with vendors for the district.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Item D,
Opposed?
all those opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so we got 4-1. We're moving on to item D, authorization to enter into sole source contract for fiscal year 2023-2024. Mrs. Fisher, can I get a motion?
I move that the governing board accept administration's recommendation to enter into sole source contracts for the year, fiscal year 2023-2024.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. It didn't pop up.
5-0. Moving on to item E, approval of multiple years IFB REP contract renewals for fiscal year 2023-24. Mrs. Fisher, can I get a motion?
I move that the governing board accept administration's recommendation to give approval of multi-year IFB and RFP contract renewals for fiscal year 2023-2024.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Did it go?
There's a delay for some reason.
5-0, okay. Moving on to preview item A, preview the Deer Valley Education Foundation DVEF Memorandum of Understanding for the 2023-2024. Mr. Miglorino.
President Paperman, members of the board, Dr. Finch, we have had a long-standing relationship with the Deer Valley Education Foundation. I know Ms. Brennan is in the audience with us. We worked together and are happy to bring to you a continuation of that long-standing partnership, which mirrors the agreement that we had for last year. This would be to begin July 1st. Of 23 and to extend through June 30th of 24 with no changes to the proposed plan that was in place for the current year. And we'd be happy to answer any questions the board might have. It is a preview item, and we'll be bringing this back for formal consideration at the June 27th meeting.
Any questions, board
I have a
members?
question. I don't know how we got so lucky to have Marie Brennan for so long, but thank you very much, and I look forward to this being an action item at the next board meeting.
I concur. She rocks.
Any other questions? Okay, moving on to item B. Preview the fiscal year 2024 expenditure budget. Mr. Miglorino.
President Paperman, members of the board, Dr. Finch, we are pleased to share with you, I think this is the beginning of the formal process, but certainly not the beginning of the expenditure budget development process. That process began probably right at the end of the calendar year 22. So we've been working on assembling this for several months, and which is typical. What we are bringing tonight is the formal process of approving the budget. So we're giving you a sense of what that's going to look like. We would bring back the proposed budget on June 27th, and then for our one and only meeting in July, we would bring the adopted budget for the board to consider. So just going through this, again, the input process, we've had board input throughout the process. We've had the district budget committee, if you remember back to that group, and then we've certainly had the NST input in the development of our salary and benefit offerings. I mentioned what the schedule looks like with the proposed budget on the 27th, the adopted budget on the 11th, which are shown here. And this is the budget priorities from that budget committee. Remember, the budget committee included community members as well as 2 surveys that we conduct in that process. So that input was synthesized into these 5 bullet points, which are going to look a little bit similar for anybody that's been on the board for any time. A lot of these are just modifications of what priorities have been in years, and they are in rank order. So the number one item that we've seen time and time again is to fund competitive salary and benefit packages to help retain employees in the district. There were a couple of new ones in here, including the inclusion of a report from the student-teacher ratio support team. And if you remember back to this report, which was given several months ago now, there was some discussion about making sure that we have a safe environment for students. And some of the insight from this committee included if we could find ways to fill the vacancies we'd have, then that would certainly improve the environment that our students are pledged to learn in. Just some highlights of the budget. So we do have the 15% M&O override is included. It would be year 4 for us of that M&O override. It would be fully funded through the following year, and that is why the board has called for an election in November of 2023 for that to be continued because those do phase out if they're not re-supported by the community members. It does have a 2.92% inflationary increase to the base support level. If you'll recall, the lawsuit, inflationary lawsuit from the state guaranteed 2% or whatever the inflation amount was, whichever is lower. So inflation is definitely higher than 2%, but it is capped at 2. So you may be asking, why is it 2.92 in the base support level? That 0.92 is a redirection of money that was previously earned in the results-based funding program that has now been added back into the base support level. We will be a net loser in that because of our high performance. We received more money in results-based funding than the 0.92% will generate base support level. But nonetheless, that was one of the legislative changes that was agreed to in the budget. And the one nice thing about this is the results-based funding had a lot of strings as to how the money could be spent. Now that it's in the base support level, it is included in our overall total budget for the district. We are continuing to fund based on current year funding, meaning we have to predict what our student population will be in roughly the 3rd week of January. That's what we'll be funded on. We are in this budget keeping that flat based on the 100th day number that we saw because the percentage has been relatively flat for the 2nd semester of the school year that we just completed. Our teacher experience index did decrease. That's also included. And as I mentioned earlier, the M&O budget carry forward has decreased from just over $16 million, $14 million. I thought maybe I had my 3-minute limit there. Some of the, just continuing with the highlights, we kept the staffing standards the same. we have district additional assistance in there at fully funded. That's a little bit left over from the past. Our district additional assistance was reduced for so many years. This will be the second year that it's been fully funded. And it does have a slight inflationary increase to it for the first time. And then we are continuing to add some cash accounts as we have for a number of years. Here is the summary of those changes. So the Group A weights, almost $11 million. The Group B weights are for the special needs student populations that we have, almost $3 million. The override, which is a percentage of those increases, increased by $3.2 million. The inflationary funding, that 2.92%, is just over $6 million. We had an increase in district additional assistance, again, due to it being inflationary, the inflationary increase there, and the cash accounts went up just slightly. That was offset by the reduction in our federal stimulus money, or known as ESSER funding. Our carry forward is down year over year. Again, I mentioned our teacher experience index. That was a $600,000 reduction. And then we have some minor reductions in tuition revenue and the school opening fund, which we used for opening Inspiration Mountain, which we will not have for the FY24. So this is the first page of the budget book, or goal book as we call it, which shows what the total is. I think the most important number here is the number at the bottom. So we are currently budgeting for a surplus of just over $4.1 million, almost $4.2 million of uncommitted budget at this point. And a portion of that has to do with the late decisions that were made in the legislative budget. We're not able to go through the NST process. And so we are reserving a portion of the funds to be able to address needs and bring back the NST group to have further conversations for recommendations to bring to the board during the upcoming school year, or upcoming fiscal year. Just wanted to emphasize the staffing increases are in here. So not only the aggregate expenditure limits that were one-time funding benefits that our employees received back in March, those were added to their salary, as well as the salary increases that the board approved. Those are shown here. We did have almost 23 FTE increase in certified staff and almost 25 FTE in classified staff as part of the budget development. That is mostly driven by the student population changes. We are also including some district recommendations for some minor reclassifications. That's just over $31,000, and 5 additional M&O funded positions that we've shared with the board throughout the last several weeks, and that's totaling just over $331,000. Those are also included in this budget that we are proposing. On the non-staffing side, I'm not going to read all of these. You can see we do have some changes. Some of those are driven by things like utility increases that are controlled by the Corporation Commission, and some of them are controlled by events that we will be having, such as the election costs for next year. Then we'll get briefly into what the impact it'll have on the tax rate. There's a lot of information on these slides, and just in the interest of time, there's a lot of components that go into determining the tax rate. It is a projection that we're providing at this point in time, but I think the most important thing, these are all the gory details, that you're going to see a primary tax rate decrease of just over 12 cents is our projection. So that's a 3.4% reduction. However, that will be offset by a secondary tax rate increase of just over 4 cents, about a 1.8% increase. So the net impact on the average assessed valuation parcel in the district is about $52.49, the annual cost increase. Most of that is driven by assessed valuation growth. And you'll see up there that the assessed valuation growth for our district was 5.1%. So our total limited full cash value, our limited valuation is now $3.4 billion. So this is kind of what we have shared in the past. So this is kind of a side-by-side comparison of what the tax rate was last. See a primary tax rate of 352, secondary tax rate of 230, a combined tax rate of 583 for the year that we're just concluding. What we're projecting in this budget is a tax rate of $3.40 on the primary side, 235 on the secondary side for a combined rate of $5.75. So you can see the reduction there at 1.4%, as I previously stated. Average parcel changing from $246,000 to $260,000. Again, we don't control the assessed valuation growth. That is what the market is bearing. But what that impact is roughly a 5.1% increase, which is essentially a slight bit, just a bit smaller than the assessed valuation growth, which was 5.7%. So what you're seeing there is the tax rate is declining, like I said, 1.4%, but the total tax that's being paid is 5.1% more, but that is due to the assessed valuation growth. I think worth noting, because we typically would have a slide in here regarding the truth in taxation notice. One of the things that's not included in the proposed budget for FY24, we are not including any new adjacent ways funding for next year. We don't have any projects that we feel qualify for that. So there will be no need to issue the truth in taxation notice that would be otherwise required if we did. So that step has been removed if you're comparing this process to what we did last year. But we will present the board the opportunity to approve the proposed budget on the 27th. That gives us opportunity to get it advertised, and then we'll have a hearing before the adoption, which would be take place on July 11th. And that is what I think we have to present to you guys, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, board members? I only have one question. Can you explain to the community what carry forward means?
Certainly, President Paperman. So carry forward are monies that are unspent from the previous year. So in the case of the information that we just shared, we had a budget that we will not expend all of the money that we had budgeted for this year, to the tune of almost $14 million. At least that's what our projection is at this point in time. And so we get to carry that unspent money forward into next year. And then we also have to be cognizant of what the change in that carry forward amount is from the previous year, because it also had a component. Once you spend carry forward money, it's like no different than in your personal budget. You can spend it once, but you can't spend it more than once.
Thank you, Mr. Miglerino. Oh, you have a question?
Just right off the bat.
Okay, Mrs. Fisher.
Just for public reference, can you let them know how much you can carry over percentage-wise so they realize it's not?
President Paperman, Ms. Fisher, yeah, so there used to be in statute a restriction on how much we were allowed to carry forward. That has been lifted, so there's an unlimited amount of funds that we are allowed to carry forward from one year to the next. And I will say just philosophically, our carry forward amount is a small percentage of the total, because we are charged with a responsibility to take as little funds as possible and allocate them to the needs that exist through the district. So there's really not, we don't see a huge benefit in having carry forward because the needs are so great for our populations that we serve. But it also, in a budget this size, you certainly want to be on the side where you have carry forward versus the side where you overspend. So we don't try and cut it too close, but certainly there's not an advantage to us. We argue with our financial advisors that rate the district every year that we do bond sales over this exact point. There should be a carry forward amount, but it shouldn't be a growing number. They think that it should always be increasing. We don't necessarily agree with that philosophically. Remember, we are funded at or near the bottom in funding per pupil in the national ranking. So it's very difficult to build a reserve when you're starting from the bottom.
Thank you, Jim. I just wanted to, you got mostly what I wanted you to say said, but I just want to note for the public that we don't have carry forward because we don't need the money. It's because we were cognizant of what our budget was. If you overspend, you get in trouble. And just slightly over, having a slight carry forward, if you look at the percentage of the budget, it is nominal. And so I just want the public to be aware that just because you have carry forward doesn't mean you don't need the money. It just means that you, unless it's too large, but unless it just means that you were responsible with following the law.
Thank you, Mr. Miglorino. We're moving to item C. Accept all audits and compliance questionnaires by roll call votes.
President Paperman, members of the board, Dr. Finch, so this is a preview of this, so there won't be any action tonight. I think we took the agenda item and moved it to preview, so there won't be a roll call vote on the preview, just to be clear, but there will be when this is brought back before the board on June 27th. If you remember, there was a change in the law that required the board to accept the audits. We have been providing information prior to that requirement, but we never had the board take formal action like the roll call vote that will be asked of you on the June 27th meeting. But we do want to share with you information regarding the audit. Just to be clear, this is the audit for fiscal year 22, so not the year that we are just going to conclude. So this is about a year old, and you'll see from on the last slide some of the timing of why it takes this long for us to get this presented to you. Also wanted to just acknowledge our internal audit team, Mr. Dale Splitberger and Ms. Megan Quayle, who've had to step up in the absence of not having a director of finance. I think that they've done a great job trying to assemble this, but just so you know, we've had to compile a lot of this information being not fully staffed. So we do have some more work to do in regards to this, but did want to share this information. This is the statute 15914 that does require the roll call vote to accept the audit. I should also note that this is the first year we have a new audit team. So we went out to bid more than a year ago. Previously, our audit team was Heinfield Meach, and this audit was actually done by a new firm for us. So there are going to be some differences in some of the documentation if you compare them from year to year. We do post all this information. The ACFR, as you see here, the annual comprehensive financial report, the single audit package is all posted on our budget 411 page, so you can not only see this report, but prior year reports as well. The USFR compliance questionnaire is rather extensive. This is how many items are in each of the categories. Where you see an asterisk is where we had a finding for fiscal year 22, and we're going to review what some of those findings were. Here we had in budgeting, although the final budget revision was approved before May 15th, it did not get uploaded to the State Department of Education until June 8th. And so that was beyond the deadline. So everything was done except uploading it to the Department of Education timely. So this is easy to fix. We just need to make sure that we have a reminder set so that those upload files do get forwarded. And we had two areas of noncompliance when it came to cash and revenue, and they were related to cash receipts at the schools. And we didn't have the supporting documentation for some of the cash to be able to justify the receipt of the funds that were given to us. This is an ongoing a challenge for us just because of how large of a district we are. We will continue to provide support to schools and forms and whatnot to be able to make sure that this is handled properly going forward. The second item that was under the cash had to do with the timing of the deposits. This happens occasionally when we have multiple people collecting the funds and then it gets transmitted from, let's say, a school staff member to a front office staff member, and then maybe even transmitted beyond that to a department. Sometimes those transmissions don't allow for the deposit to meet the timeline that is required, which is that the funds be deposited within a week. And so we have implemented such things as a point of service system to be able to collect funds even electronically. We've done remote scanners at the schools so that they can just scan those checks to be able to get them deposited as quickly as possible. Despite all of those efforts, because there's sometimes a chain of command when the money is being collected, they don't always get deposited within a week. We'll continue to work on that. And try and find solutions to minimize those findings. When it came to property control, the stewardship items, so these are the items that are of lesser value, but still something that we want to maintain a catalog for. We weren't able to locate these. A lot of these were technology-related items. We did learn through this that we weren't even following our own board policy regarding the dollar value. So we were trying to find some things that were nominal in value that we weren't able to track down. So we have started to implement what the board policy states in terms of tracking of stewardship items to hopefully address this. Not that we don't want to keep track of these items, but these were very small dollar amount items. For 4 of the 100 cash receipts that I'm not keeping up here with the with the slides. I apologize. The next item happens to be student attendance reporting. There were 4 items of noncompliance that were found here. A lot of this has to do with just the variety of information that the school front office staff have to contend with. A student shows up or reports as being absent and then actually does show up even after being reported absent or leaves in the middle of the day. There's all sorts of variations to what the schools have to keep track of. We do have a calculator that helps them determine if it's a partial day absence and what portion of a day. But even with some of those changes, or even with all those tools, some of the things that they experience do not all get captured. So we will continue to provide support. We do also have a changing staff population, with some turnover that also is a contributing factor. So we definitely need to continue to support the front office staffs so that these can be improved over time. We did have a finding. 7 of 7 is not a good ratio, where we did not maintain a equivalency statement for our online students. A Google form has been developed and now does meet that requirement, so something, a new process as we learned that this was not being handled properly as a result of the audit. And we had, for one of our student enrollments and one of our online instruction enrollments, we did not have the proper Arizona residency documentation. And don't know these particular instances specifically, but many times when somebody brings the student, they want to get them enrolled, the parent will agree to bring back the required documentation at a later date, and then it doesn't get followed up on, the parent doesn't bring it back. But it is a requirement in statute, so that's something that we want to reaffirm with our staff. And for one of the withdrawals, we had a 10 consecutive day absence that didn't match the actual student's last day. So we do have to go back to the last day of attendance and report them as withdrawing on that day. But that sometimes is easy to get overlooked because we don't know if a student's going to be missing for 10 days, because a lot of times parents don't notify us if somebody isn't withdrawing. We sometimes learn that from getting a request for records for a student to attend a different school. So this is an ongoing challenge for us. And then we had two non-compliance areas in the information technology area. One was that third-party vendors have a data sharing agreement. Most of these contracts that we have that require this data sharing agreement were entered into more than a decade ago. So the contracts have some of that information in it originally, but I think we need to ensure that those safeguards are reaffirmed on an annual basis in order to meet this requirement. And then we had a disaster recovery plan in place, but we did not actually test it during the fiscal year. That is a requirement of the USFR. But to actually test the plan would probably take a better part of a day or so to fully back up everything from one of our complete backups, just because of the size of the terabytes that we store. So we do have a plan in place. We have restored from backups, but we have not fully tested the disaster recovery plan that we have in place. So I'm not sure if this will be an ongoing point, or if there's going to be a way for us to evidence that we have been able to test that going forward, but nonetheless was a point that was brought up with our auditors for the. And I think, we have just kind of the statement that is at the bottom of this slide basically means that it's an unqualified audit, so that the auditors support that everything that they looked at, they don't have any reservations about the financial processes that we have in place. And then finally, the timeline. So we have already had the auditors out to do test work in April. We will continue that work in the beginning of fall for, I'm speaking of the FY23 audit. That annual comprehensive financial report, or ACFR, will be completed by the end of December. And then it's the compliance questionnaire that doesn't get completed until the end of March. From that, we develop our corrective action plan, and then we bring back to present the audit to the board, typically in May. And again, we're a little later than that in this year, again, because we didn't have a director of finance during these last several months. But we have also shared with the board what the corrective action plan is for all of the findings that I just reviewed. So I'll see if there's any questions. And again, this is just a preview item that we'll bring back next meeting for the board to accept.
Any questions, board members? Mr. Carver?
Mr. Mignorino, so is it fair to say that when we refer to something like technology losses, then that cell phones, laptops, things of that nature?
President Paperman, Mr. Carver, you're talking about from the property control?
Correct.
Yeah, it probably wouldn't be cell phones. Probably is going to be something like of nominal value, probably between the $500 to $1,000 range. But yeah, something of that. I don't remember the specific items that they weren't able to identify, but it would have been within that range.
Okay.
Dollar amount.
And yeah, I saw on that last slide there that we still fell within recommended standards for our violations. So can you help me understand, does it have to do with the number of violations or the categories of violations period if we were to be there?
So it's President Paperman, Mr. Carver. It's actually a combination of probably three things. So frequency, volume, and I would say the repetitiveness of the finding. So if the finding is there for multiple years and doesn't seem to be addressed, if it's just an overwhelming number, like we had an instance of 7 of 7 that in the test on the online students, and then if there's an unwillingness of the agency to be able to try and correct something that shows up repeatedly, then that would be reason for the Auditor General to want to alert the agency that they would need to come up with a more formal corrective action plan.
So just for the community's understanding then, in this sort of an audit, it's to help us. We have an oversight organization that reviews our reports and sees areas that we could improve upon. And as long as we make those improvements or formulate a plan like you have here, then everything's good and we move forward. Find a different mistake moving forward is basically what they're saying. Don't keep making the same one over again.
President Paperman, Mr. Carver, yes, this is basically the report card for the finance department of the Deer Valley Unified School District, and it provides us with the information to be able to continue to improve. The number of processes that the number of purchase orders that we would process in a year, the number of cash receipts that we would collect in a year, they're not all going to be perfect, and so what they're looking for is they're looking for tendencies, right? How many of these would give you reason to believe that we didn't have safeguards in place or processes in place to follow the statutes that we're obligated to follow. And in the opinion of the auditors, again, this is the first time they've audited us, not the first time we've been audited, just the new relationship with the auditing firm. They have an unqualified opinion, as we've had, I think, the entire time I've been here, which is almost 19 years now.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Any other questions? Mrs. Fisher?
Jim, I want to thank you for taking this into a preview so that board members, and so that it's publicly and board members can review it. As I've said in the past, people, people are most nervous when you mess with their kids and you mess with their money. And for professional reasons, I also need to make sure that I'm the decisions of what I vote on. So I do appreciate you pulling it out for separate consideration and for being so detailed in the work. I do want to note for the record that the deficiencies we have had are minimal. They are not, I've seen districts with way more, and we have good processes and good internal controls. But when you have that many people working in the hands-on arena where finances are concerned, there's human error, and it's if you don't have internal controls, it becomes out of hand, and that's when we have a corrective action plan necessary to be, or to be, as I think was referenced, taken over. That's not. You got to be pretty bad to be taken over. But I do want to commend you and your team and some of our processes, because I have processes firsthand, and Deer Valley is very, we have good and strong internal controls. And so, but I do appreciate you putting it in here for us to review thoroughly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miglerino. Community members, staff, or if anyone has any questions, just send an email to the board and the superintendent. Moving on to item D, first reading of policy IGA, curriculum development. Dr. Galligan.
President Paperman, members of the board, Dr. Finch, I bring 3 policies to you. They are very similar policies. IGA is curriculum development, IGD is curriculum adoption, and IJJ is textbook supplementary materials selection and adoption. The only change for these 3 is that written into each of these policies is that any of our curriculum adoptions or anything that looks at adopting resources will follow open meeting law for those meetings. So that's true for policy IGA, curriculum development, policy IGD, curriculum adoption, and policy IJJ, textbook supplementary materials selection and adoption. The information remains the same, and we recommend that Deer Valley accept the language change per policy advisory 744 through 747. This is a preview item for these 3 policies, and we'll bring it back for formal consideration at the June 27th board meeting. Thank you.
Any questions, board members? Okay, moving on to item 9, reports.
Did you want me to start?
You can.
Okay, I'll just do it because I'm not
Or
used to
you're
doing it
over
first. No, I'm kidding. Okay, so tonight is June 13th, and 10 years ago today, many people sitting in here and those in our district spent this afternoon and evening with me at my husband's celebration of life. So I want to thank you for supporting me then and to continue to support me when I say, do you realize a family? You are a family. So I just wanted to put that out there. I can't believe it's a decade, but you guys are still here and so am I. So there we go. I wanted to point out in a long line of rewards that our principals have received this year. We have another one, Tina Marone, and if I were to say that true Italian, it would be Tina Marone, was picked or earned the title of ASA Rookie Principal of the Year. Just another person in our district that is excellent. And the kudos keep coming, and we don't look for them. They find us, and they do that. We've got summer camps that are going on that are incredible. I don't know if everyone that wanted to get in them got to be in them, but boy, the pictures I'm seeing and what the parents are saying about them, incredible. Employee travel for conferences. We have this conversation every once in a while about how maybe sometimes we should do it watching a podcast or just not being there in person. But I will tell you, when you listen to the staff that come back from their in-person experiences, the networking that they have, the back and forth about ideas, it's outstanding that our district supports that. And leading from the top, we have our board members, at least 2 that had the availability to do that same thing and travel to Flagstaff for a conference. That would have been a lot different than getting it off the internet. So our district is extraordinary, it's excellent, and it's excellent because we have excellent people in our district. So that's my report.
Stephanie?
And speaking to which, over the past weekend, I did attend the ASBA pre-conference and conference in Flagstaff. So we had a gentleman earlier today who had shared some concerns about the ASBA. He's not here right now, but I did want to touch upon that. The ASBA works with our board members across the entire state of Arizona. It stands for the Arizona School Board Association. They work with board members to educate on policy and best practice. So, for example, the policies that were just previewed now, those suggestions come from the ASBA. And in addition, it offers training on board-related topics such as open meeting laws, board ethics, budget. We had that tonight as well, and so much more. So it is what brings board members from all across the state together for one common goal, and that goal is for our students. That's what we speak to, and that's what the ASBA does. In regards to ESA vouchers, the ASBA is for public education. It's the Arizona School Board Association for public education. So when we lose funding to ESA voucher programs, our students lose. And then finally, just as Ann had mentioned, lots of great camps going on. Jumpstart and Extended School Year are in full swing. This is the second week for those. So I just really wanted to send a huge thank you to all those teachers and staff out there who come back in the summer to do those programs. It's a choice, but when you choose that, you're choosing to put students first. And I absolutely applaud you as a parent of a student as well as just a community member of DVUSD. I am so thankful. My youngest is in one of those programs, and she is loving every day of it. Today they had a therapy dog come in, so that the kids got to read to the therapy dog, and they sent some pictures. It was pretty great. So anyway, I just really want to say thank you to those programs, and I'm just proud to be a part of a district that offers those programs to our students. And I just want everybody who is a part of that to just know that your hard work does not go unnoticed. So thank you.
Mr. Carver?
Thank you, President Paperman. Just real quick, Ms. Moffett, what I was referring to earlier, I don't know if you remember a few meetings ago. I just wasn't aware, since I missed the last one, if our legal team had gotten back to you on their presentation of what we do for classified. They gave us a very detailed letter for the other side of the coin, and we were looking for the same sort of thing for our classified folks. Have you heard anything?
So President Paperman, Mr. Carver, that would be my misunderstanding. I did not know that you were looking for a legal review of that process and I would assume from the same attorney. What I did provide in the update was another review of what the process does look like per board policy. If your request is for Ms. Lilbert to take a glance at that for the classified process and recommendation, I'm sure to do that.
I'll review the update again and see if it's will suffice for what the community is looking for on that. I appreciate that. And I just want to take a second and thank everybody, whether it's my peers here up on the dais with me or the administration, and to any of the staff that happen to be listening. The job that all of you do, enough thanks can never be offered or given. And I just really appreciate the opportunity that I have to serve the community and to work with such amazing individuals. I just want to thank everybody for that. And I'm going to leave it at that for tonight. Thank you.
Mrs. Fisher?
Summer tends to be a little bit just different because, well, all the teachers aren't here, even though there's a lot still going on. I did also attend the ASBA conference. And, sitting out on the lawn, talking with members of other school districts and kind of thinking back to our history and that's always been a conference that I do attend. It's the shortest one. It literally is just a couple days. It's not very far. But what made me sad is that is the best conference for a board and a superintendent to come together and form a team. That is the best conference. And it has not been utilized as such. So I just think it would be really good if it was. I too want to address the individual who spoke about ASBA. And I will tell you, I have a love-hate relationship with ASBA. But in my, 15 years dealing with school districts and working with ASBA on different capacities, I can say that it's changed. ASBA was formed back in the 40s, and I think the people from the 40s would probably sentiment the gentleman that came to speak because it's just changed so much. I don't believe just throwing ASBA out is the answer. Identify the issues if there are issues and fix them because we do need public education. No matter what anybody thinks, we do need public education, and board members don't come with years of experience in school districts generally. And so there is a need for ASBA. I've noted it in my ASBA surveys. I've noted it with ASBA individuals. The direction of ASBA has changed to be it's supposed to be a nonpartisan association, but it has gone extremely to one side. And there have been many board members that have expressed that across the state. But I still don't think the answer is to throw them away. Not all districts can have a lawyer. Not all districts can write their own policies. Not all districts can do some of the things. Some districts are really tiny and really need that support. So that being said, I'm just saying, I think ASBA needs to be a discussion, but it needs to be a statewide discussion, not just a Deer Valley discussion. The second thing that he mentioned with the ESAs, and I did just also note that there is so much misinformation about ESAs out there, specifically in school districts, and it concerns me. I think that really needs to be a conversation that we have, because are we here for the adults and the organizations, or are we here for the kids? So what's best for the kids, to me, just needs to be a priority. To reiterate my request, I do request that we have that meeting, whether it be an executive session or a public meeting, to review what we had reviewed when it came to dealing with employees who have been identified as potential pedophiles, or how we deal with things, and kind of update on what that looks like. And I think I had another request, but I think that was written down as well. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisher. I second that request. I think we need to look more on the process. This is not the first community member that have stated if something happens within the campus, what's the process, or the student safety. So we need to have those discussions as the board and with the superintendent in an executive session. So if we can move forward with that. I also would like to say that I attended the Taiwan summer camp, and it was amazing. I was impressed. The students, the culture, learning a new culture, the customs, and it was just amazing to watch the whole thing. And thank you, Dr. Galligan. Dr. Galligan, you took most of the work in making sure for that to happen. Thank you. Also, I attended the high school principals, all the high schools, and we did have discussions, and I did ask questions to see what support do they need from the board. So it would be fantastic if we had more funding from the state, so our high school can have counseling on each campus, if they can have social workers. As the economy keeps getting more challenging, I know I stated that we do have even homeless students on our campuses. So having these extra resources for our students, where to go before they graduate, to make sure that they have a roof over their heads and food on the table. So it would be fantastic if we did have a social workers on the campuses and counseling to give them that mental support. Also, I hope that the teachers, the staff are having a relaxing summer, and thank you to the teachers that attended training, been there, done that. I know the work that as teachers that we put into it to prepare for the next school year, and have the rest of, hopefully everyone can have the rest of a relaxing summer. Thank you, Dr. Finch.
Thank you, Ms. Paperman. As was mentioned by Ms. Ordway, we continue to get state recognition for staff and students in the fine arts and the athletic arena, academic arena as well. We'll celebrate those at the start of next year when kids are back from zooming around. I also want to draw attention to the Taiwanese culture camp was, as Ms. Paperman noted, it was unique. It's the first time we've done that as a district. Highly student-centered, very cultural, very educational for students. About 300 students attended, and that's what we put the lid at. And so we planning on doing it again in the future. It was rather expensive, We actually, part of their program is they actually fly experts in from Taipei and to help train the students. And so maybe we can get TSMC to help with this adventure in the future. I'm planning on it, so we'll see how that goes. As you know, as we finish this year, we are already planning for next year. It's constantly in motion. Superintendent goals is a good example. We end one cycle and start another. And so thanks. Continue to give me your feedback. We're gathering all, if you see any data trends, things that the community have said to you that reflects in our data, keep letting me know so I can check it out for you and start digging up the best goals for us for next year. Appreciate that. Many of you already have given me good trails to chase. Been working on that, and we'll get that started here pretty soon as far as handing it to you, and you can play with it as well. The ASBA and ASA conferences actually, this time of year, actually usually run into each other. They historically fall on the same time frame as they did this year as well, and which makes it unique on which one to go to. So that's kind of a bummer. I don't know why it's like that, but it's historically been that way. It's been kind of a bummer. But we are planning to do the back to school rally again, reminding the community and our staff that we get together every 4 or 5 years, get the family together. We're pretty excited about that. We're going to be at GCU this lap, and CCV did the honors for us 4 years ago. But we're going to move on to GCU and looking forward to that. And Dr. Galligan, again, we may mention her name again, she is kind of the tip of the spear as we go to figure out this new venue. And obviously there are dozens of leaders and staff members that are all involved in this historic and exhausting undertaking. It is a challenge to get 4,000 people to one location safely and then do all this event and then go out. So Dr. Gallen's going to need extra treats and extra kindness here in the next couple months as we prepare for the rally. So make sure you say thank you to Dr. G. Yeah, hopefully all of you can attend. It's quite the event. It's quite worth seeing. And I think there is a coordinated board dance that, have we told them about that yet?
There is, but there's also a lobster dinner right after the dance.
Yeah.
So
I think it's an interpretive dance. So, no, it's the weird one. Yeah, it's definitely the weird one. So we want to remind everybody the next board meeting is June 27th. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Finch. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I motion that we, so moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.